Centrist Democrats, what do they love doing? They love throwing around identity politics. Like, we're all pro LBGT. Until then, an LGBT person threatens them. Then they're going to smear that person. Lo and behold, when transgender whistleblower and former soldier Chelsea Manning announces her candidacy, guess who goes after her? The left. The left attacks her. And what tactic do they use? What can they do? They can't use the tactics that the right would use. The right would say, oh, she's transgender, whatever, it's against God's law, the Bible and Jesus are all gonna blah, blah, blah. No, the left, their old standby, she's a Kremlin puppet. Chelsea Manning is a Kremlin puppet in the eyes of these jackwagons on the left. This article was submitted by Crafty Geek, a Patreon supporter, and the article was written by Glenn Greenwald on January 15th. He also amends it on the 16th because then he posted this article showing all of these left-wing corporate Democrats and corporate media people going after her. And then at the end of the article, he even addresses their attacks on this article. So it's unbelievable. It just shows you how full of shit they are. They're so full of shit. They're so full of shit. It's like this is how it suits them, right? We're all for women's rights, and if you didn't vote for Hillary, you must hate women. You don't want women to be in power. Well, then why didn't you support Sarah Palin? She would have been the first female vice president. Oh, right. Can't support Sarah Palin, but we got to support Hillary. And Jill Stein's a Kremlin puppet. Jill Stein was running for president. She was trying to become the first female president. Oh, we hate Jill Stein but we loved her when she was doing the recount. She's raised money to do the recount. And then they say, oh, where Jill Stein kept that money. No, she didn't. So this is what's fascinating, right? It's funny. So Chelsea Manning announced that she's running for Senate. Who is she running against? She's running against an old white straight dude that works in AIPAC, right? And we all know AIPAC, and in the AIPAC conference in 2015, he led it with Lindsey Graham. And there was a conservative broadcaster like, wow, they sound so similar. That's because they are. So he authored a bill. This is Ben Cardin, is who Chelsea Manning is trying to unseat. This is the thing I talk about, guys, with this year 2015. This is a big year. And a lot of progressives are running against old line corporate Democrats. And the Democratic Party doesn't want this to happen. Believe me, the Democratic Party doesn't want a bunch of progressives to take over. They don't care if the progressives are transgender or black or white or Latino. They don't give a shit. They just don't want them. They want to do with the big, they want victories like in Alabama, right? That was a big victory. They wanted victory, and black people, mainly black women, came in, and okay, great. We barely beat the pedophile. And then this guy that wins in Alabama immediately starts trying to court like white suburbanites. This is why we got to watch out for the Democratic Party, man. So the person that Chelsea Manning is running against is Ben Cardin, who last year he authored a bill that would have made it a felony to support a boycott of Israel. A bill that has such a profound assault on basic First Amendment freedoms that the ACLU instantly denounced it, and multiple senators who had co-sponsored Cardin's bill, such as Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, announced that they were withdrawing their support. Right? So here's Chelsea Manning. She served 7 years in a military prison for exposing systematic U.S. war crimes and was held under prison conditions so brutal that the United Nations formally denounced them as inhumane. So in there is where she became a stooge for Putin. I can see why she wouldn't like America. So she was jailed as a man, while in prison decided she wanted to go through the surgery and that she wanted to transition, and that she demanded the dignity and treatment to which she was entitled, which she was in prison in the middle of a sprawling military base in the brig at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Right? She has since been out of prison. She's obviously been a spokesperson for transgenders' rights as well. She's like, how that's what she went through was unbelievable. She's used her position as a Guardian columnist to take a stake out a wide range of positions, including drafting a proposed law to provide protections for whistleblowers. Deep State doesn't want that. She certainly has more political experience and activism than any other Senate candidates previously supported by Democratic establishment. Al Franken come to mind. One example. This is Glenn Greenwald's article. If elected, Manning would become the first transgender woman ever and the youngest woman ever to serve in the U.S. Senate. Well, wouldn't the Democratic Party want to be all over that? Nope. Ben Cardin. This is who she's running against, and this is who the Democrats are supporting by calling Chelsea Manning a Kremlin puppet. They're supporting, according to Glenn Greenwald, one of the most standard, banal, typical, privileged, and mediocre politicians in U.S. Congress. Benjamin Cardin, a 74-year-old white straight man who is seeking his third 6-year Senate term. Cardin's decades-long career as a politician from the start has been steeped in unearned privilege. He first won elective office back in 1966 when his uncle, Maurice Cardin, gave him his seat in order to bequeath it to his nephew, Benjamin. With this dynastic privilege as his base, he has spent the last 50 years climbing the political ladder in Maryland. It's unbelievable that, like, they then go after her and depict Chelsea Manning as a tool of the Kremlin. And her candidacy is just this disguised plot engineered by Moscow. Who's leading the way? Neera Tanden, president of the largest Democratic Party think tank in Washington. Last night, this is the night of the 14th or 15th in there when Chelsea Manning announced, Tanden spread a viral tweet that strongly implied, without even pretending to have a shred of evidence, that the Kremlin had engineered Manning's candidacy as punishment for Cardin's hardline position on Russia. Senator Cardin authored and released a 200-page masterpiece on Russian influence in Western elections. Suddenly, he is a primary from Kremlin stooge, Assange, WikiLeaks primary source, Chelsea Manning. So the Democratic establishment doesn't want whistleblowers. We're supposed to be the party of truth and freedom, and Trump is so evil, and this is what they do. The Kremlin plays the extreme left to swing elections. Remember that. So now, any of us on the left, any progressives, we're Kremlin stooges. Right? This is why I love reading Glenn Greenwald. The idea that Vladimir Putin sat in the Kremlin, steaming over Cardin's report on Russia, and thus developed a dastardly plot to rid himself of his daunting Maryland nemesis. This is who Putin is worried about. This guy in Maryland. I know how to get rid of Cardin. I'll have a trans woman who is convicted of felony leaking run against him. Is too inane to merit any additional ridicule. But this is the climate in Washington. No conspiracy theory is too moronic, too demented, too self-evidently laughable to disqualify its advocates from being taken seriously. As long as it involves accusations that someone is a covert tool of the Kremlin, that's why the president of the leading Democratic think tank feels free to spread this slanderous trash. Right? Side note, Tanden's ongoing attempt to smear all of her critics as agents of a foreign power is particularly ironic given that the think tank she runs, the Center for American Progress, conceals the identity of many of its largest donors. Well, why would you do that? But admits that one of its contributors is one of the world's most repressive regimes. And if there's any entity Worthy of the type of disloyalty innuendo that Tanden loves to spread, it is the one that she runs, the Center for American Progress. This is a big Democratic think tank that Neera Tanden runs, right? $1 million or more. There's 3 people that are anonymous. And in the 500,000 to 999,000, the Embassy of the United Arab Emirates. That is an oppressive regime. That's who supports this. The Center for American Progress. Unbelievable. Because Manning's a threat. Julian Assange, oh, he's a Kremlin puppet. Anyone that calls out the corruption of the left is a Kremlin puppet. Right? And this is the final thing. Molly McHugh, who's just like, she's a Russia-obsessed expert. She's the worst. A little too convenient that Chelsea Manning will primary Senator Cardin, one of the most effective senators on foreign policy and leader in making policy legislation to respond to Russian aggression for Maryland Senate. Guess what? That's what Dem Tea Party is going to look like. Snowden Party. They're going after Snowden. These people, it's unreal. Wasn't the left we're going to support the whistleblowers, right? It's unbelievable. Molly McHugh says, I know there are a lot of people who still think Manning as a whistleblower, but the agent of a foreign power coerced this individual, leveraging their emotional distress into breaking their oath to the country and disclosing classified secrets, period. Hey, Molly McHugh, you don't know, you're part of the problem. Like, she's a deep state actor. It's like unbelievable. Like, and then former RT anchor Liz Wall, who was like, I believe Abby Martin calls her a deep state actor. Because when Abby Martin was as RT, Liz Wall, who now works in the mainstream media, and she's the like, oh, RT is a problem. So it's like they planted her at RT so then she could quit and say, oh, I was bamboozled by this Putin machine. It's unbelievable. And this is the final paragraph, like Glenn Greenwald writes. And just to underscore the point again, the issue is totally ancillary to the primary import of the article. Issue we're talking about the nonsense of people responding to Glenn Greenwald's article, which is about how centrist Democrats exploit identity politics when it suits them, but then feel free to keep the old white straight men in power at the expense of marginalized minority candidates such as Manning. Where are all these feminists? Where are they? This was a woman, a transgender woman that was jailed and tortured for 7 years for blowing the whistle on war crimes that the United States done. Under Obama, by the way. Obama put her behind jail. So, where are you? Where are the feminists? This is my problem with the neoliberals. Only when it suits them. Only when it suits them. If this white guy were a Republican, oh man, and Chelsea Manning's fighting the patriarchy. They want to keep an old white corporate guy in power versus having the first ever transgender. This is how they're operating. Look at this complete bullshit. Women, all these women. Oh, she's a Kremlin puppet. Liz Wall, Molly McHugh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, thank you, by the way, Crafty Geek, for submitting this article. You can do this too if you go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood. And this is how they do this. They go on Twitter and say this bullshit, and neoliberals retweet it. And it's just insane. It's just insane. Anyone that calls out the corruption is a Kremlin puppet. It's crazy. Neoliberals are some of them are worse and crazier than the wingnut Trumpers. I mean, this is dangerous. This is dangerous and irresponsible. And you're not some, don't give me this like you're for transgender people. No, you're not. You're not at all. You're for the deep state. You're for the corporate state. You're for the war machine. That's who you are if you call yourself a neoliberal. So I hope Chelsea Manning wins. And thank you for watching this. And thank you for supporting the show. And thank you for getting your news in other places than the goddamn corporate media, because they're all complete lying jackwagons.